When President Barack Obama is sworn in for his second term, his hand will rest not only on President Abraham Lincoln's Bible, but on Dr. Martin Luther King's Bible too. And I am pleased that Myrlie Evers, the wife of the late Medgar Evers, will deliver the invocation at that inaugural swearing in. As the ceremony falls on the federal holiday celebrating Dr. King's birth, the civil rights leader would no doubt be proud as an African American president is sworn in on the steps of a Capitol built by slave labor about 170 miles from Jamestown, where slave ships landed. We have come a long way. But Dr. King would not be satisfied. He marched to his own drummer and wanted to be remembered as a drum major for justice. He worked tirelessly for change, but he never took his eyes from the prize. He understood there must be a creative tension between the political and the prophetic. The political seeks the popular and attempts the possible. The prophetic seeks the moral, states the truth, and challenges the limits. For Dr. King, bipartisan agreement had little value in itself. There was bipartisan agreement on slavery. Abolition was outside the consensus. There was bipartisan agreement on segregation. The Montgomery bus boycott, the Selma March for voting rights were outside the box. When Lyndon Johnson pushed through the Voting Rights Act, stating that we shall overcome, Dr. King praised him, but he challenged Johnson's war in Vietnam and the retreat on the war on poverty. He spent part of the last birthday organizing, as you all know, the Poor People's March on Washington. He was prepared to commit civil disobedience to force the nation's attention on the poor. We know what Dr. King would be focused on today. Nearly 1 in 4 children in this country are being raised in poverty. More than 46 million people struggle with poverty in the wealthiest nation in the world. Nearly 18 million households in this country are what we call food insecure. Millions are facing foreclosure. School budgets are being starved, even as jails are being stuffed. An extreme and obscene gulf exists between rich and poor in this nation, with working families suffering from mass unemployment, falling wages, and increasing insecurity. There is a growing racial polarization as African American and Latinos and other emerging ethnic groups in this country are feeling the deepest effects of the Great Recession. And they are the last to recover from it. Schools today are more segregated than they ever were in Dr. King's time, but no one talks about it. The United States also has a larger military budget than at the height of the Cold War, and drones in 6 countries are likely generating more terrorists than they are killing. There's no doubt that on Monday, Dr. King would celebrate the re-election of an African American president, but he would not stop there. He would challenge the limits of the current debate. He would be organizing mass civil disobedience to call the nation back to its senses and to demand action against poverty, violence, and the endless war that has shredded our Constitution, wasted lives, and squandered our nation's scarce resources. The partisan is much too petty to address the unpopular. The bipartisan is too limited to speak the truth. Dr. King told us that there comes a time when silence is betrayal. He understood that the movement for justice would often offend the majority. We would make progress, he argued, not through the complacent adjustment of the conforming majority, but through the creative maladjustment of a non-conforming minority. The second inauguration of Barack Obama on the day we celebrate Dr. King's birthday reminds us how far we have come. But Dr. King would demand that we look clearly at how far we have to go. It is not a time for complacent celebration. We cannot accept mass unemployment, grinding poverty, and endless war as the new normal. On Dr. King's birthday, it's time to mobilize the creative maladjustment of citizens of conscience once more. So what I would like to say to you, the network of black employees at Port Authority, thinking forward and being your own champion affords you the opportunity in a variety of different ways to also make your presence felt. I am a big believer that activism at the community level, grassroots organizing of people around issues of concern in communities, and mentoring and rising up to support young people to gain educational parity is the way to go. One of the other last unchallenged mountains for us, and I spoke to economic parity, is making sure that there is equal access to participation in the economic mainstream of this country. I remember through the decades, Port Authority always spawned the discussion. Because of the economic engine you are for this region, to make certain that there is full access and participation into the economy that is generated by Port Authority and organizations such as yourself. And I want to close with something that I was inspired by when the late Senator Edward Kennedy spoke and nominated our president. He gave a very inspirational speech, and he closed with this: "The work goes on, the cause endures, the hope still lives, and the dream shall never die." Thank you very much.